Hey guys, good evening. Welcome to Revolutionary Change, or Pontificating with Pete with Revolutionary Change on Saturday night. Hope you guys are all doing well. We've obviously got tons of stories to cover this evening, and we certainly hope that you're all here to get your Saturday started on a good note, or potentially have your Saturday night here with us. So either way, it is always a pleasure. And we just passed 58,000 subscribers, so we're on the up and up. And as always, we hope you are doing well. I had a thought before coming live tonight that when I think about some of the other stories that we've covered, some of the other stories that we like to cover, I realized that with everything that's going on right now, and there's a lot of places we can go that get us distracted, because I do consider it a distraction. Until we have firmly removed ourselves from the death grip that is the genocidal fake state of Israel, there really isn't anything else that keeps my attention. That doesn't mean there aren't other stories to talk about. That doesn't mean that there aren't levels of interest in different areas that I have concerns about, as I'm sure you all do as well. But I want to be very clear. Until we are able to rid ourselves of this unholy alliance, everything else that we talk about, it's an ancillary story. It's not that it's irrelevant. It's that its value is diminished substantially, because in the end, everything is connected. That's what we have to remember. Everything is interconnected to these core stories. Kirk Boss, I will tell you, as I would tell everybody else, and I do like that profile picture, I will say, let the ads play if you can. It's actually one of the most effective ways to help us grow our channel. Now, I'm not telling you to let the 2-3-minute ads roll, but if it's a 15 to 30-second ad, it really makes a difference. It really helps us out. So if you would be so kind, I would say that to everybody. Let the ads play. I always do the same when I'm doing it with my channel. Are they a pain in the ass? Absolutely they are. Especially with some of the noted advertisers on our channel, like Phoenix Energy. I didn't know we were exactly a channel that people wanted to come to discuss drilling for oil and natural gas in the United States, but here we are. Thank you, Larry. I appreciate it. I appreciate all of you guys. It is great to have you all here. And obviously, we are going to cover plenty of stories this evening. Now, when I say that we have to discuss this, that the reason why, and again, I see someone in the chat already saying Trump must go, and then I would say to myself, okay, so Trump must go, but what are you replacing him with? Somebody who's just going to do the same thing, maybe not as overtly as Trump has done over the past several years? What's the point? I say, if we're going to be full bore about it, you might as well have Trump there, because he's not going to hide anything. He's just going right in, full blast, no thoughts about it whatsoever. I'd rather have an overt than a covert. At least with an overt, you can't avoid it. It's in your face 24/7. And I say, when we're thinking about some of the more contentious issues that we're dealing with here, and we think about what's going on at the very top and why we can't seem to get anywhere. I am not familiar with the content creator Dylan Page, but I appreciate the work that I discovered that he did regarding, as I said, what is one of the core issues, if not the core issue that we're dealing with here. It is the concentration of power that the Israel lobby has over all of us. So here's some insight into, again, several things that have happened since Charlie Kirk's assassination. And this is one of them.
Just witnessed the largest delegation ever of US lawmakers visiting Israel. And I almost guarantee you have not heard about it. 250 state legislators representing all 50 states arrived in Israel on Monday, and they attended an event at the Foreign Ministry titled 50 States, One Israel.
I just have to say, right off the bat, this image, 50 states, one Israel, I mean, this should be talked about in every single publication in the United States. It's right in our face, guys. Right there. Right in our face. 50 states, one Israel. They're not beating around the bush. They're telling you how it is. Every single state. And the legislators that run that state, you answer to that man and his genocidal fake state.
Titled 50 States, One Israel. On Tuesday, the lawmakers then took part in a ceremony where they planted 50 trees, one for each state, at one of the locations of the October 7th attacks. Netanyahu's office described it as the largest ever bipartisan delegation of American lawmakers to ever visit the Jewish state. Israel's Foreign Minister, Gideon Sa'ar, urged the lawmakers in attendance to pass anti-BDS laws in their state.
Now you know why they all went over there. They all went over there to get their marching orders. And unlike Charlie Kirk, they listened. And it's not just the federal law that was passed, this time by Lowen Boebert, about anti-BDS legislation. 36 states have anti-BDS laws. And they range in punishment from fines to incarceration. I believe Texas has the harshest laws against BDS. Now, Florida's pretty bad, but my understanding is that this is one of the worst. And so this explains why these asshats went over there. And boy, did they get over there quickly, especially after the assassination. They understood the assignment.
BDS stands for Boycott, Divestment and Sanction, and it is a movement started in 2005 by Palestinian activists. Anti-BDS laws are designed to make it difficult or discourage boycotts of Israel, and to date, 38 US states have adopted these laws, resolutions, or executive orders. Gideon Sa'ar said, "We are witnessing a coordinated global effort against Israel today, claiming that their enemies have turned to propaganda, political, legal, and economic warfare."
No, you did it to yourselves. You committed a genocide. Of course, you have been committing some variation thereof for the past 75 plus years, but now it's in full view of everybody. And now we know that the number is hovering around 700,000 dead, including about 500,000 children are dead. They're becoming a pariah state. And we, unfortunately, because of our completely captured by corporate special interests, have become engulfed in this problem. It's a problem for everybody now because they're going to get more radical in their approach. They know that they're losing control. So what are they going to do? They are going to double and triple down on censorship, on punishment for crossing them in this country. Thankfully, a lot of other countries are getting ahead of the curve. But one of the biggest reasons they're doing this is because the UN is recognizing a Palestinian state. If we start to break away, they've got nowhere to go. No one is going to save them. And remember, almost all of it is bribery. It's totally inorganic. And when eventually people stop taking bribes, like Charlie Kirk did, well, you see what happens and what they will resort to. Jen and I have talked at length. If there is one nation and one leader in the world that would drop a nuclear weapon, if push came to shove, it is Israel and Milikowski. That's who would do it. And they're letting them know that we're not afraid to push the red button. They're making it very clear that they're not afraid to do that.
And said to the crowd of US lawmakers, the best answer against BDS until this day has been anti-BDS legislation by your states. But the timing of this trip couldn't be more controversial, not only because the day after they arrived, the United Nations Commission of Inquiry officially ruled for the first time that Israel are committing genocide against Palestinians in Gaza, but also because on the exact same day, Israel's highly condemned ground invasion into Gaza City officially began. And the reason I said I almost guarantee you haven't heard about this is because, to my genuine surprise, literally no major media publication is covering this apart from local news in Israel. And I mean, regardless of where you stand, is the largest delegation of US lawmakers to ever visit Israel not newsworthy?
It's very newsworthy, just like the ground invasion in Gaza City is not being talked about. We have a wholly corrupted and captured media ecosystem. And that's not without addressing this simple little nugget about how the bribery of the Israel lobby is taking over Turning Point USA and making them look even more guilty than they did in the first place. We covered this the other night. It's in our most recent clip about Candace Owens, about how Charlie Kirk's organization was given $1 million, a cool million, from Ben Shapiro and the Daily Wire. But I thought that the Daily Wire was having problems, financial problems, streaming problems with getting people to tune in. And all of a sudden, they've got $1 million. I'd like to know where that money came from. Talk about paid influence. That's why Matt Walsh is out there saying his bullshit. That's why Michael Knowles is doing the same. They're trying to keep the herd on the plantation. They're doing their damnedest to make sure that that doesn't change. But the facts don't lie. You have to bring 250 federally elected legislators to Israel under the cover of night and let them know that, hey, you're not doing enough with your BDS legislation. We need more. We need more. We need harsher punishment. In fact, why don't we just whip out the guillotines while we're at it? You speak ill of Israel, off with your head. That's going to be what comes next. At least that's what they would do if they could get away with it. Dylan Page has a very large platform, as do a lot of other amazing content creators. But keep in mind, Dylan's over in Aussie land. It's amazing the news that you will get from other parts of the world, because the rest of the world is looking at us and thinking, how the hell do they put up with this? Why are they so ready, willing to accept their own demise? As I've said, we are going to sink into hell if we do not break away from this. That's what's happening. I'm sometimes at a loss for words when I think about how bad this is. But I also recognize how far a lot of people are willing to go for money and power. They're willing to go very far, and they're willing to kill for it. I will be very clear when I say that Ben Shapiro is a war criminal. He is a genocider by proxy. His efforts in what could only be surmised as somebody who either outright works for Mossad or does everything Mossad wants him to do, those actions, those efforts, they have gotten hundreds of thousands of innocent children killed. And so we must bear witness. That's our job. Recognizing just how bad this is going to get. And we cannot deny one of the main reasons that it's ended up here. And I do believe that that is because so many of the people that, I mean, we already know what corporate media was going to do, what they have done, what they will continue to do. That's not going to change. That is all par for the course, all of it. But when supposed independent media, and it doesn't matter what your bend is, if you're on the corporate algorithm, chances are you're being funded by Israel. Now, do enough people either recognize that? Do enough people necessarily care? Are they stuck in their echo chamber and they're just not willing to make a change? They still want to play red versus blue bullshit? Yeah, there's quite a few of them that probably still do, and they're going to get their money. In the end, that's really what it's about. And they're going to just roll with that audience as long as they can. Future generations are not going to put up with it. They're not going to go along with that nonsense. But we have to be ready and accept that as much as we would like to be able to have the type of audiences that some of these other channels have, that our message is able to get out there, we know we're up against it on the corporate algorithm. Just a few days ago, we had a number of clips that were doing really well. We had one clip do over 40,000 views. A handful of others did about 15,000. And then the next thing you know, over the past couple of days, our views go right back down to a couple of thousand. It's not a mistake. It's how it works. Get a little too big, got to knock you down. Now, if you're on the corporate algorithm, you could do no wrong. It almost doesn't matter what your topic is. Frankly, if all you want to do is just talk about Trump 24/7, they'll let you ride that wave forever. The same is true if all you want to do is talk about the supposed assassin. Notice one thing that I am very proud of here on our channel, and Jen and I have agreed upon this since day one. We have not even mentioned the person's name, much less do a segment on it, because we know it's bullshit. We know all of it is bullshit. We know that there's a reason why some of the people that have been talking, we know that they're getting to the powers that be. We know that there's a reason why they can't let this die. Because as much as it puts people in harm's way, and again, we're not big enough to actually affect that change just yet. And that doesn't mean that we can't get there. That doesn't mean that there aren't things that we can't do to continue to elevate our reach. But make no mistake, they are very concerned about what's happening right now. And I know this because in particular, you have Candace Owens, who is being relentless about what she has been talking about regarding her late friend who was killed. And as we've said, whether you agree with Charlie or not politically is kind of irrelevant here. What we know is that he was a big deal. He garnered a lot of support. And a lot of people were following him in whatever path he was taking the conservative youth of this country, of which there are many. And so Candace has been very adamant that whatever happened to him is not what is being said publicly by the powers that be. There is evidence that the shot came from somewhere else. There's been no ballistic testing. There's a lot of things that haven't happened. But I would tell you, the level of desperation that they are going to try to shut her up, I believe Candace is underground somewhere, that she has put herself in some type of a bunker. And I know that of all the people they want to silence, it's her. She's definitely at the top of the list. We're very proud of how far our channel has come, but we are obviously nothing like her. She can get several 100,000 people at any minute watching her when she goes live. And so what happened the other day on one of the biggest slime buckets in all of independent media, and again, I shouldn't even call it independent media because it's just a form of corporate media that's now transitioned to the digital sphere. And that, of course, is Patrick Bet-David, who will platform anybody, including Milikowski, which he has. There's also that. For those of you who know who Eric Bolling is, he was a prominent, featured commentator, host on Fox News for a long time. And he apparently is on the board of Turning Point USA. And Patrick Bet-David, who never misses an opportunity to grift for more money, dragged him onto the stage to get him to say this about Candace Owens.
In 2011, 2012, 2013, they were tight. They grew TPUSA like crazy. I was shocked to see her leave until being part of TPUSA, her theories got just a little bit too down the rabbit holes. It was too extreme for their taste. And Charlie, to his credit, kept a cordial friendship with her for years, but it hasn't been a communication pipeline back and forth between the two for many years.
Now, what I always find interesting about this type of pontificating is that you have somebody who is speaking, one, of the dead, and then two, of a person that he has no communication with, and he knows what type of communication those two people had amongst themselves. Now, there's only one possible way that he would know if, in fact, their communication was either on the rocks or we're not really communicating on the regular. And do you know how that is, ladies and gentlemen? He is an agent of either our intelligence or Israel's intelligence. That's the only way. There's no other way that Eric fucking Bolling would know jack shit about the relationship between Candace Owens and the late Charlie Kirk. No chance. But let's wheel his ass out. Let's wheel him. Of all the people you're going to drag out and say, oh, I know who we'll get. We'll get Eric Bolling to talk about the relationship between Candace Owens and Charlie Kirk. That'll work. All about the money.
That's why I don't know why we give Candace Owens' assessment any weight at all.
You're on the board of Turning Point?
Yeah.
Okay. When's the last time you saw Candace Owens?
In person?
Yeah.
2015,
Oh,
2016.
wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So then he must know exactly what Candace is thinking and what Charlie is thinking. And by the way, for those of you who are not up to snuff with Patrick Bet David's PBD podcast, Valuetainment, let me assure you, usually you can't see the 8-pack handler. Adam Sosnick, that's Patrick Bet David's 8-pack handler. If you were to look at the commentary on an average PBD podcast, any episode, especially any episode when this dickwad is talking, you know what you'll notice? No one who watches his show likes that guy on it. Nobody. In fact, I kind of go out of my way to figure out what exactly is it that anybody likes about this guy. He's every single negative Jewish Miami stereotype that you could possibly find. And yet, despite all that, he is considered the right-hand man of Patrick Bet David. Now, if Patrick Bet David is only about the ratings, is only about the content, and that's what matters to him, you would think he would give a shit about what his audience is saying about one of his most featured players on the panel. In fact, there's really only 3 others besides him. And Sosnick is the one that universally, and this is going back even before October 7th, that they all said, I can't stand this guy. Why is he always on there? Why is he always giving his opinion that no one wants to fucking hear? And now you realize maybe this guy's there because that's the deal that Patrick had to make with the devil in order for him to have the channel that he has. He's not that great of a content creator. I'm not going to say that PBD doesn't have a show that I can understand why it does well. He's got a great grift. He fools the shit out of a lot of up-and-comers that think they're going to get rich. And they buy into his bullshit, because that's pretty much what it is. But why Sosnick? If anything, you would think it would be hurting him. It probably is. And yet, he's there. And his opinions are as pro-Israel, anti-American as far as I'm concerned, as anyone you will ever hear outside of somebody like Ben Shapiro or Mark Levin. He's as bad as it gets. And yet, he never seems to get reprimanded. I wonder why that is. It doesn't take a genius to think about what the reasoning might be.
Turning Point?
Yeah.
Okay. When's the last time you saw Candace Owens?
In person?
Yeah.
2015,
Oh,
2016.
wow. Okay.
Yeah. No,
When's the last time she was at a Turning Point event?
not in many years.
Okay.
But
So let's
here, you don't
without
even have to
even
do this,
being
Adam.
biased.
There's a
is Candace even involved
There's
in Charlie Kirk's life at all?
No question, proof that Candace Owens is nothing, has nothing to do. She would be in a perfect world if they didn't have this. What I already know was a very quiet breakup where she got too rabbit hole for him.
How the fuck do you know this? This would be no different than somebody like Eric Bolling discussing the relationship between Jen and I and whether we lost touch. How the fuck would you know? We don't talk to you. You just said you haven't spoken to Candace Owens in a decade. And you know their relationship? You know how close they are? How the fuck would you know that? Are you being fed intel? Because there is no other explanation. You know, the one thing we've said very crystal clear about the Israel lobby, they're not very subtle. They're really not. Just like they've left a dozen clues at Charlie Kirk's assassination that it was anybody other than the person they're saying did it. But this guy knows. The way I see it, keep talking. Keep going. Remember, it is better to keep one's mouth shut and be thought a fool than to open one's mouth and remove all doubt. That would be Israel's best strategy. But oh no, they can't help themselves. They got to keep going. Guys, Kat Negrita, she's made a good point. We only got 168 likes. If you want to help us grow our channel and get more people to see it, do us a huge solid and just smash that like button. Let's get those numbers up. We've got over 400 people watching. Let's get to 500, maybe even 6 if we're lucky. We love you guys. Please hit that like button. Really makes a big difference.
She would be the logical heir to the TPUSA throne, but she's not.
And now she's not even invited.
Correct. So this is so their divide is.
Wait a minute, not a.
Do you know why she isn't been offered to take over Turning Point USA? It's very simple. She has not taken the money from corporate special interests. She doesn't have millions of dollars that are pro-Israel dollars, mind you, to give to Turning Point USA. Ben Shapiro does, and that's why he's doing it. In terms of content, of course, Candace Owens would be the logical conclusion in terms of who would be the curator, the director, if you will, of all things Turning Point USA. But that's not how it works. That is what we have said to every Charlie Kirk supporter that has found their way to our channel. He had talent. No two ways about it. I will never take that away from him. However, he never would have ascended the way he did and got to where he got without corporate special interest Zionist billionaire money backing him up for over a decade. That's how he got there. And the second he decided that he was going to think twice about taking that money, it's one thing if you've never taken it. It's another thing entirely if you've taken it, and then it's another thing even more entirely if you've taken a lot of it and it has built an empire. And you're going to say no? Okay. Watch what happens. And we saw what happened. You think they won't do it again? And when he refused it, well, the devil came to collect.
Invited meaning
She's not even there.
Yeah, she's not
there.
one of the names.
Wait, you don't think she'll be at the funeral?
No.
That's
I mean,
not the funeral.
The heir to
Oh,
the
okay.
TPUSA throne.
She doesn't speak at the events anymore.
I mean, Erica.
That's a reason
Erica
for that.
Kirk. I mean,
what is Erica Kirk's relationship with Candace at this point? Is there a relationship?
I don't think so.
Why do you not think so?
Because I live in this world.
Okay.
I live in
you
this.
know
I
this
mean,
world. Tell us.
I don't see them together. I don't think.
I could say really derogatory things right now, and I'm not going to. All I'm going to say is that Adam Sosnick has one hell of a grating voice. I'm sure I'm not the only one who feels that way. He also comes off like a gossip queen. Ooh, tell us. Tell us more. Make it up if you have to.
I think Candace has created a lane for herself. Yeah. It's her own lane. She wants to go after Macron's husband or wife or whatever you want to call him. She wants. I agree that I think it's cheap that she is sparking this up like she knows something between something happened between Ackman and Charlie. For what reason?
Here's what I would say. To me,
She does know something. She knows a lot. She knows something's going on here. And you, slime bucket, don't want it to come out because your livelihoods depend on it. That's the only reason. The entire onion is being pulled apart. And you know what's in the middle? Nothing. It's just hollow. It's a grift. It's a corporate Zionist billionaire grift that has been dragging our country to hell for several decades. When Bernie first ran for president in 2015 and he started talking about the Koch brothers, in which nobody had ever really addressed the oligarch ruling class the way that he did, everything changed. And little by little, we learned a little bit more about how all of this works. And now we're seeing it for what it really is. Eric Bolling, that's the best you got? Well, you're really pretty desperate. But one would have to ask themselves at this point, why is it that they feel that they have to go down this road of smearing Candace, dismissing her as anybody of real relevance? Here's what I can tell you guys, based on the experience of working with Jen, her running for Congress, the people that we've met, the people that we've spoken to on and off the record. Here's what I can assure you. Somebody like Candace Owens, she might not be intelligence herself, but let me assure you, she has very powerful friends in very high places that gives her information, whether on untraceable, dummy phones, whatever they're using, but she gets information that nobody else gets. That's it. Do I think she knows the crux of how deep this goes? Yes, and I do believe that there are things that she simply will not repeat, which is probably a condition for her sharing what she is sharing. It's kind of like the X character in JFK. I'm not going to name names, but I'm going to give you some additional pieces to the puzzle. And you will find out for yourself, based on that intelligence, how exactly we got to where we got. And that, in essence, is what is happening here. Candace is now questioning, where did the shot come from? Because apparently it didn't come from where they said.
Nothing gory about this footage from the back. The thing that really stood out to me, and I just kept asking him to replay it over and over and over again, is that there's no blood. There's no blood from the back. There is no blood. So I think a lot of people were wondering whether or not that bullet pierced and went out the back. I think I vaguely even remember, and Skylar, you can maybe live look this up, but I thought the feds were saying they were looking for a bullet at some point, which is now very alarming to me. I don't understand that. How could they have been looking for a bullet? Because if I'm not seeing, and there isn't, I'm telling you, what happens in the front is not what happens in the back at all.
She's bringing up a really good point. I brought this up with Jen the other day, wondering, why have there not been any ballistics tests done? Did you see how fast they got Charlie's carcass in the ground? They don't want anybody testing anything. You know why? Because whatever story you're being fed is not the truth at all. I won't even say the guy's name. Just call him Patsy. That's what we'll call him. Patsy. That's his name. One thing some of you will notice about some of the bigger channels, especially the ones that are on the corporate algorithm, not only have they been talking nonstop about this Patsy, but it always has to be framed from whatever angle they're playing to their audience. He's a groiper? That's what it was. He's a trans lover? That's what it was. And all the while, Israel's just counting the money. Trump and his cronies are looting the State Department. 250 of our federal legislators split down the middle in terms of party line, are going to Israel and getting their talking points. BDS laws are getting passed. Corporate tax cuts getting passed. All of it. But let's worry about which side of the aisle the fake assassin was on. Instead, Candace Owens is using her platform to ask, where did the shot come from? Because based on what I'm seeing and what everybody else is seeing, it did not come from where they said it came from. And I believe Candace. And she has a real axe to grind here. She grew up with this guy. They were teenagers together. They ascended. They maintained their relationship. Do not believe your lying eyes. That is one thing I have been saying. I have been pleading with everybody to just listen and understand as crystal clear as I can make this. For once, don't believe what you're being told and question everything. All of it. He was a golden goose for Christian Zionism. The only reason he would be taken out is because
I made him an offer he couldn't refuse. But he refused the offer. And we had to do business. And that's what happened. We had to take care of him.
that's what they did. They got rid of him. You refuse a meeting with the real president of the United States of Israel? You refuse his $150 million cash infusion into your empire? All the signs point to the call came from inside the house.
If I'm not seeing any blood, what are we to take from that? The only thing that could make sense, if what they're saying is true and that person took the shot from the place that they are saying that individual took the shot from, it would suggest that it was inside of Charlie, right? And they would know that. The feds would have known that. So they would have communicated that they were never looking for a bullet. Because remember, one shot.
Really makes you think, doesn't it? And they say we really shouldn't talk about this. We've got over 500 people watching. We've become a legitimate channel. And one would tell us, you really ought to be careful about what you're talking about there. You might end up getting yourself into some trouble by continuing to talk about a story that you know is going to affect the bottom line of the very power structure that actually keeps this broken country afloat. But to that I say, fuck it. I don't care. If we end up getting pulled, so be it. This is what matters. It's not a question of who did the deed. It's a question of why it was done. The reason it was done is because Israel is losing control and they don't know what to do. And when somebody like Charlie Kirk says, I am not taking your money, they had to make an example of him. They shoot him dead. And within less than a week, Ben Shapiro is systematically taking over Turning Point USA. This isn't by accident. This was probably in place. Who had the most to gain? They're showing you right now. Ben Shapiro had the most to gain by Charlie Kirk being taken out. And he is proving it in real time every day, every minute, that, yeah, I did benefit from this. And I'm going to benefit even more because I'm going to put that organization under my thumb. You know why? Because Charlie Kirk was a master at raising corporate money. But maybe he started having second thoughts about it. And all of Turning Point USA and the millions of supporters that follow them all over the United States, especially in the heartland and the South, it would all go away. But I'll come in and I'll save it. To that end, I say, how about it? How about it, Benny Boy? Give them all the money they want. The more people know that Zionism has seeped in to every corner of this country, especially Turning Point USA, they'll all go away. Why the fuck would they stay? They already know, and they're going to sink straight to hell. So don't let them.
So I'm very confused. I'm very confused, not by what I saw, but what I didn't see. Okay.
And she's right. It's not about what you can see. It's about what you can't see. What they don't want you to see. Did you know there was a camera directly behind Charlie filming the entire incident, and they haven't released that footage publicly? You know, there's an image directly coming from one of the buildings adjacent to where this entire event was taking place. And there appears to be a flash of light coming at the exact moment that he was shot and killed. Again, things that people don't want to talk about, but I'll talk about them because I'm not doing this for a career. I'm doing this because I give a fuck about this country. I don't want it to fall. There are a lot of problems that we have, but the people who run it are running it straight into the ground. That's where we're heading. If we do not undo this relationship and undo it now, that's where we're going. You can see it. The value of our money, the value of anything. Insider trading run amok. We have a government that does insider trading every day. And not only do they do insider trading, and we've obviously talked about Wasserman Schultz at length in particular, because it's not just a question of trading on inside information. What type of inside information are they trading on? They're trading on the type of inside information that involves war stocks, specifically for Israel, and killing more innocent children. That's what they're profiting on. That's what our country has sunk to. And we're just going to accept this? We can't just accept this. We cease to exist as a nation if we just think it's okay to do this. It can't be this way. We have to put our differences aside and recognize how we're going to solve our problems. Those problems get solved when we coalesce together around the core issues that matter. You know, my politics fluctuate, but it's non-corporate across the board. I'm not all the way left. I'm not all the way right. I'm not even in the middle. I'm populist to a fault because I recognize that we're only as good of a nation as the ones who work with their hands as well as their brains. We need everybody. And right now, we are reduced to a gimmick economy that has no long-term solutions. Zero. And the only way out of it, because they're not going to give it up, you will have to pry it from their cold, dead hands. There is no other way. We are in hell. And how we get out of that hell, well, it's probably going to involve some type of a revolution. And one that will not be bloodless. If you're enjoying this content and you're enjoying this live stream so far, which a lot of you are, we're at 555, great number.
Really great number, great people here, tremendous people. And if you're so inclined, we certainly hope you'll support this terrible channel, but they're doing a decent job, so I got to give them credit. Go to patreon.com/revolutionary change. It costs tiny little hand, $5 a month. You could support them. I mean, even I can afford $5. If I can, so can you. Help our small but mighty channel grow so that I can continue doing my Trump impressions. We only have one super chat so far,
but it's a great one. J. Rahman, $4.99, Free Palestine. Thank you very much. I really do appreciate it. So the same goes out to everybody else who's here. You can go to Patreon. You can also contribute on YouTube, but Patreon takes less. So we always recommend going to a place where you get more bang for your buck. But sometimes if the audience is big and you want us to see your comments, in the early days when we really didn't have a lot of volume in terms of our audience, heck, I remember when the average viewers were, we get 30. We get 30 live viewers. Ronnie, thank you very much for the $1.99. When we would have 30 viewers, 40 viewers maybe, at the end of the stream, I would always run through all of the names, just let everybody know that we really appreciated everybody being here. I didn't think we would ever get to the point in which I wouldn't be able to do that. It's very gratifying. It really is. We do not take for granted that we've created a lasting impact, and we've done it all organically. We didn't get any breaks, and it is more gratifying that way. It's nice if anybody wants to boost us, but I will tell you, we've got 2 huge live streams that are coming up. We've got lots of wonderful guests coming up, but we've got 2 huge live streams that we're going to be doing. I guess technically it is the first week of October, but got 2 of them coming up. One, addressing the 2-year anniversary of October 7th the right way, and our 5-year anniversary as a YouTube channel. 5 years we've been doing this. We have had streaks at various times where we have grown the audience between 1,000 and even 1,500 subscribers over the course of 24 to 48 hours, which is amazing. There was a period in the early stages of us growing this channel, 2 years, we grew 1,500 subscribers. That's it. So I think it makes us that much more appreciative of how far we've come. I do think there are channels that are out there that get a little too big for their britches, sort of an expectation, if you will. But granted, a lot of that comes from being on the corporate algorithm. Don't kid yourself. But if you want to know where you can go, where if you're in the audience, you matter, and we appreciate you being here, it's ours. Kenman, thank you so much for the $6.99 Canadian A. If you swallow the black pill and live, every day above ground is a good day. I agree. I used to think it was a red pill. Then I took the black pill. Now I see. And before I couldn't see. But now things are clear. Amp, easy. Thank you for the $20, my friend. Peter, you are a true American patriot. Continue bringing awareness. Right back at you, brother. I appreciate your support. We appreciate your support. I don't know if you're new to the channel, but I know that's your first super chat. Thank you very, very much. And we hope to see you in the chat all the more going forward. That Freedom Guy, I dig it. Thank you so much for the 10 something. Wherever you are, thank you very much for your support. I forget where the A is. If anybody in the audience can point out where the A is from, I don't recall, but I certainly appreciate it. We all appreciate it. And a cool logo for you too. So one more time, go to patreon.com/revolutionary change. If you want to help this channel, they're doing a good job. Probably a lot better than I have over the last couple of years. I should have spoke up sooner about what was going on in Gaza, but I didn't. I am unfortunately not thinking very clearly these days. I really wish Aussie land. Awesome. I guess that's sort of equivalent to $10, I think. But yeah, you guys are great. And we really appreciate you all being here. Thank you very much, Amar. And stay safe. We all know Israel is kind of out of sight, out of mind at this point. So I ask you, why would this be such a big deal? What is the essence here? Why are we so suspicious about Israel's involvement in Charlie Kirk's assassination? It's not like we're doing anything to try to push a narrative that doesn't exist. We leave it up to the person that everyone feels is most responsible for what's happened because he's not letting it go. The prime minister of the fake state of Israel wants you really to believe really hard that he really had nothing to do with Charlie Kirk's demise. He's still going. Give him enough rope, let him hang himself, as far as I'm concerned.
Joseph Goebbels, the Nazi propaganda minister, said that the bigger the lie, the faster it will spread. Well, somebody has fabricated a monstrous big lie that Israel had something to do with Charlie Kirk's horrific murder.
I don't know. If I look close enough, I think I can see you pulling the trigger. If you are so concerned about people thinking that you're a murderer, I mean, we already know you're a genocidal mass murderer, but Palestinians don't count, so we're not worried about them. Yeah, people think that you're a murderer. And what's one more body in the ground going to mean? You see, the problem we have isn't just about Muslims, brown people. What it really means is, where is the money and where is the power? That's what it's about. That is the essence of the problem. Charlie Kirk had a lot of money and a lot of power, and he made a lot of money, and he gave a lot of power. And he was very useful until he wasn't. Milikowski couldn't wait to be the first person to say how much he loved Charlie Kirk after he was dead, even though it has been well documented that he refused his financial advances as well as a trip to the Holy Land. Whatever his reasoning was, it was pretty valid. And now your type of damage control is what exactly? Because I'm still not getting it, other than what Fuentes said. Either you are 50 states and one Israel, or you're not. We loved Charlie so much, and we'll love you just the same if you ever cross us. I think that's what he was really saying.
This is insane. It is false. It is outrageous. Charlie Kirk was a giant, a once-in-a-century talent who defended freedom, defended America, defended our common Judeo-Christian civilization.
You mean your Judeo-Christian civilization, not mine, and probably not much of the audience. Remember the separation of church and state? It's right there in the First Amendment of our most important document as a nation. But don't let that fuckhead fool you. He'd have you believe otherwise. Charlie Kirk was a talent. No question. He was a great talent. He could grift with the best of them. And maybe some of what he preached was what he really believed. But in the end, he didn't realize just how small he really was in the grand scheme of things. So when Milikowski is out there buffing his rotting balls, I don't know why he's doing this. And this isn't the first time. This is like the third time he's doing it. And it's not because he has a guilty conscience. That man isn't capable of feeling guilt about anything. He is the ultimate psychopath. The only logical conclusion that I can come to in terms of why he's doing this is because he still feels that he has to get everybody in line who is even thinking about getting off of the Israel plantation. If you even think about leaving or not doing as we tell you to do, see Exhibit A. There is no other explanation. If somebody in the chat wants to give me an idea as to what I may be missing here, but I can't see it. Why would he do this?
Charlie loved Israel. He loved the Jewish people. He told me so in a letter that he sent me just a few months ago.
Why don't you show the contents of the letter? Show people what's in the letter. You won't do that. Because what's in the letter might actually clue in as to why he was taken out. Just a thought.
One of my greatest joys as a Christian, he said, is advocating for Israel and forming alliances with Jews to protect Judeo-Christian civilization. He encouraged me to make the case directly to the American people about how vital Israel is to U.S. national security. He told me, the Holy Land is so important to my life, it pains me to see support for Israel slip away. Now, if Charlie disagreed with a policy of mine or a decision here and there, not only did I not mind, I welcomed it.
You know, we say Trump is the most honest liar we've ever seen. I honestly don't know when Bibi is telling the truth or telling a lie. Frankly, I think it's all a lie. I'm sure Charlie Kirk did love the Holy Land very much. I think Charlie Kirk probably was a devout Christian in his public and private life. But in the end, he didn't want anything to do with you or your kind. Zionism was something that he finally came to terms with, was not what he was led to believe. Remember, this guy was prepped from the time that he was 17 years old. It's very hard to unwind that by the time he's 31. People can face harsh awakenings at various points in their life. It is painfully clear to me that Charlie was dealing with some internal reckoning of sorts that he didn't know how to deal with, because as it was reported by Harrison Smith in InfoWars, he feared for his life. The guy's fearing for his life and then he gets assassinated. As I've said, and I'll say it, I've said it before, I'll say it again. We live in a digital world. There's a reason why we have so many gamers and they're popular. So many of the movies that are made today, like the Marvel universe, is not real. But when Charlie got killed, things got a little too real for a lot of people that had otherwise not thought that anything of that nature was even possible. And now you see things for what they are.
This is the essence of Charlie. This is the essence of a free country. It's exactly what Charlie stood for. And I knew that his suggestions always came from the heart, from his love for Israel and from his love for the Jewish people. A few weeks before his death, I spoke to Charlie. I invited him to visit Israel again. And sadly, that won't happen.
He made it very clear that he had no interest in going to see you. And Candace has used her platform for all it's worth to make it very clear that she communicated with Charlie. And he said, I am not going to Israel. I am not only not going to Israel, I am not taking his money. So he is omitting. He's lying, but he's deliberately omitting the full scope of the story. Yes, you did invite him to Israel, and he said, no, I'm okay. Thanks, but no thanks.
Now some are peddling these disgusting rumors, perhaps out of obsession, perhaps with Qatari funding.
You know, the funny thing about the Israel lobby, they really like to go in on this narrative that somehow our government is funded. I mean, listen, I've seen Tim Pool, listen, he's not the worst, but the point is, I've seen Tim bring people onto his live stream, including some woman whose name is slipping me right now, but it's a Zion Nazi. And they're going with this talking point that it's Qatar that is actually the problem here. They're the ones funding our government, and the Israel lobby is just trying to prevent Qatar from taking our country over. That's their narrative. That's what they're going with. Will that sell? Can we sell that one? I don't know. Go with it anyway. That's what they're doing.
Do know is this: Charlie Kirk was a great man, and a great man deserves honor, not lies. Rest in peace, Charlie Kirk. May your memory be a blessing.
You know, I've said it before and I'll say it again. Not to speak ill of the dead, but what exactly did Charlie Kirk do to be such a great man and warrant this fawning post-death? I'm still trying to figure it out because I'm at a loss for words. I don't know what it is. I'm not here to say, as people have exaggerated, everyone is going to have a very strong opinion about Kirk. And that's okay. My opinion is that if you guys look back in our catalog, and we've done several clips on Kirk prior to his assassination, there were times when we called him out harshly. There were also times where I, in particular, acknowledged where he was right. In fact, one of the best clips that we did regarding Charlie was him calling out Blackstone and how future generations have been completely destroyed by private equity's systemic takeover of real estate in the United States. So he was a mixed bag for sure. But they do this. They do this because they know that the walls are closing in. Now, they may not think that the walls are closing in. And there are many theories as to why exactly. What is it that they're doing that is causing this to happen? Going after the wrong people is not a smart move. You might think that you can get certain people to shut up and get in line. If there is one person who is not going to get in line, it's Tucker Carlson. And he had this to say about Netanyahu.
Was shocked and sickened by the reaction of the ghoulish and really repulsive reaction of the Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, to Charlie's death. Basically made it all about him and all about his country. Immediately trying to take the energy, the sadness, the grief that people felt over Charlie's murder and redirect it towards support for whatever project he's involved in. And by the way, Benjamin Netanyahu is not the same as the nation of Israel at all, but I don't think I've ever seen anything lower than his attempt to hijack Charlie's memory and use it for his own political ends, particularly because what he said was completely untrue. Charlie didn't hate Jews. He loved Jews. He had tons of friends who were Jews. He loved the state of Israel. He loved going there. He did not like Bibi Netanyahu, and he said that to me many times, and he said it to people around him many times. He was appalled.
As he should have been. I know I would be. So one has to ask themselves, why does Milikowski feel the need? For those who still don't know, Milikowski is Netanyahu's real name, because everything related to Israel is fake as hell. One really has to ask themselves why he's going to such lengths to prove his innocence. He doesn't seem to want to prove his innocence when committing a genocide on the Palestinian people. It is amazing. But I got to tell you, Tucker Carlson's an interesting guy. He's always been a man of privilege, immense privilege. He's heir to the Swanson Foods fortune. But he is a person who's had somewhat of a political renaissance over the past probably 7-8 years, I would say. My respect for Tucker Carlson changed in a huge way, in a defining way, all the way back in 2017. Remember when Trump first got in there and they were coming after him with everything they had? But then he bombed Damascus and everybody loved him for about 5 minutes. But Tucker, it was reported, devoted his show on Fox News that following evening to call out the president and say, do not go to war in Syria. This is not the answer. If you take out Assad, you're going to get ISIS. Much like Saddam, much like Gaddafi. You may not like some of these leaders in the Middle East, but they hold things together. And if you remove them, you're going to get this vacuum that is going to kill millions of innocent people. And lo and behold, what it turns out, that so much of that death and destruction came as a result of the interests of the genocidal state of Israel. So Tucker's been putting himself in harm's way for over 8 years. And while I don't agree with all of his takes, I've agreed with pretty much every one of them on Israel. I agree that he does like to preface it with, I love Israel. I think Israel's great. I don't like Milikowski. Okay, you know what? It's still better than nothing. Whatever's going to bring about the salvation of the Palestinian people, however quick it can happen, Tucker's on that side. And we should all be grateful that he is.
By what was happening in Gaza, he was above all resentful that he believed Netanyahu was using the United States to prosecute his wars for the benefit of his country. Didn't hate Netanyahu, but he certainly expressed that to me and a lot of other people. Enough text messages exist that I think it can probably be verified in pretty short order. Not that it needs to be, because that is true.
Tucker's saying, I've got the receipts. If you dare me to show them, I will. But notice how nobody is coming out and saying he's a liar. They're going after Candace pretty hard, but they're not going after Tucker. I wonder why that is. Now, many people think Tucker is intelligence. Those of you who have been watching the channel for a while, you would know that I had my father on as a guest to talk about the economy. My father was at an event for the Teddy Roosevelt Foundation, interestingly enough, in Naples, Florida, about 2 months ago. And this picture was taken. They had a nice conversation. Said he was cool. You know, kind of dorky, which I expected. But they had an interesting chat. You know, perhaps Tucker is just somebody who has evolved. I think I agree with some of the chat. He is intelligence, no question. But I think he has evolved on his positions. He's willing, much like his meeting with Putin, he is willing to question the narrative. And I do believe that, as I said, Tucker is intelligence, but maybe he is protected. I don't know. What I do know is that Candace Owens is probably low-hanging fruit for the Israel lobby compared to somebody like Tucker Carlson. Tucker Carlson has real power and influence. He doesn't flex it very often. In fact, I don't even really see him doing it at all. And usually that is the result of somebody who knows their power and knows their position. That's why he does not hesitate to say what he says about Milikowski. Almost made the mistake there. People take great risks. When you think about how much money and power is involved. And what can happen if you get out of line? Especially after what happened to Charlie. And Tucker is still saying this? Well, power to him, power to Candace. 2 of the 3 most powerful America First conservative voices in the United States, and they have moved on from Israel. And that is a dangerous place to be if you are their state. Now, one might ask themselves, where are things with the Israeli people? Where does their country stand? How do their people feel? I thought about holding this clip until Monday so Jen can comment as well. There's going to be a lot of things. I had 2 particular topics related to Israel that I thought would be good to talk about with Jen, but we'll save it. We're going to save one from Monday, and we're going to do one here. The Guardian recently went to Tel Aviv and interviewed, as I said, to that Zion Nazi that showed up in the chat, as I say to the rest of you, you're all going to hell. All of you. Because I believe that heaven and hell is on earth in many ways. And if there is anything in the hereafter, it's all about what's in here, what's in your soul. To be Christ-like is to accept the fact that you do unto others as they would do to you. But you never question whether what you're doing might be the true evil. That's why religion is evil. You don't need religion to live a life as Jesus would want you to live. That's the secret. Don't ever forget it. We don't want to not acknowledge that there are some good people in Israel. Like I mentioned, the 20%. This is the 20%.
In one sentence, why should people refuse to serve in the Israeli army?
Because there's a genocide and you don't enlist into an army that's committing a genocide.
In one sentence, why should people refuse to serve in the Israeli army?
The IDF is continuing to behave the same way it's behaved since Israel's founding, which is furthering horrible death and violence and a circle of blood for everyone.
Because the Jewish state that trying to present me wanna exterminate the people of Gaza, and we can't be silent. Never again is now for everyone.
Because it is committing genocide and it's not helping not Jews and not Palestinians. We are all in danger because of the Israeli army.
שום פעילות, הפגנה, כתבה, לא משיגה את הכאב שגורם רצח העם בעזה. הצבא של המדינה אליה נולדתי, על כל חייליו מגנרל לטוראי, הוא האחראי הראשי לזוועות הללו. כל חייל, מהטייס, ללוחם, לטכנאי, למדריך, לשוטר, למסביר ולפקיד, אחראי לפשע הזה. כולנו שותפים מרצון ומהכרח לאבדון המתרחש במרחק כמה שעות בודדות של נסיעה מביתנו. הפך צה"ל לא רק לצבא שלא ראוי לשרת בו, אלא לאויב שעלינו להתנגד אליו.
You know, we talked at length about what happened when Netanyahu thought he was going to drag this country into World War III by attacking Iran. One of the things that we've learned that Charlie Kirk did shortly thereafter was have a secret meeting with the president in the Oval Office and asked him, pleaded with him, do not go to war with Iran. Is that why he was killed? Again, it's not just one thing. It's several things. Credit where credit is due to these youngins, especially doing it in Tel Aviv. Talk about guts. You end up getting yourself into a lot of trouble, but they're willing to do it Got to give him credit.
פרויקט הדגל של מדינת ישראל הוא טיהור הארץ משוכני הפלסטינים. מדינה שאלה יסודותיה אינה לגיטימית. מדינת ישראל מבצעת רצח עם, וחובתנו להתנגד.
I know it's easy to do as they do. Their intention is always to cast everyone aside and say, everyone's guilty. You're Palestinian, you're evil, you're guilty, you have to be killed. The same is true when somebody talks about an Israeli or a person who is living in the genocidal, apartheid, colonized state that is Israel. And as some people in the chat have pointed out, very European-looking people, because that's their origin. That's why they don't allow DNA tests in Israel. But I will say this. If there are good people in the country and they are willing to stand up for what is right, even in the face of a great backlash, especially as their genocidal state falls out of favor with the rest of the world, which it has, but is also falling out of favor with our country and our people, even if our government is almost wholly bought off by them. It's not a question of if, it's a question of when. How quickly can we do our part to make sure that their genocidal state no longer is our problem? Because if it isn't, they have nowhere to go. So let's do our part and lift up the voices that need to be lifted up and do everything on our part, on our soil, to make sure that whatever they think they can get away with, it's only temporary. Our mission is to liberate the Palestinian people. If we can't do that, the next best thing we can do is make sure that precedent is set for humanity forever. And that involves disconnecting the genocidal apartheid state that calls itself Israel. One more time, if you guys are here and it looks like you have appreciated the conversation up to this point, make sure you go to patreon.com/revolutionary change. For as little as $5 a month, you can become a supporter of our small but mighty and growing channel. It does look like we've gotten some additional super chats. Aisha, thank you so much for the $10. Love you, Peter. I love you. Jim Talib with the $2 super sticker. Thank you so much for checking in this evening. Really appreciate it. Edward Campbell with the $5. Check out the BDS movement and avoid the Zionist brands. Shut down their revenue and they will fall. I agree. There's a lot of brands out there, unfortunately, that we need to avoid. We will be discussing Ben & Jerry's on Monday. Would love to get Ben Cohen back on the live stream to talk about this. Maybe Jerry Greenfield will follow this time. I'd love to have both. I'm not greedy, but I do believe in aiming for the stars. Log66 with the 20 pounds. Thank you so much. Sabby Sabs, a woman showed up at a gas station asking for gas. So I went to her car and filled her tank. Her tank was empty. I've been there before. That was me in 2008. We still have a lot of poverty in this country. You're right, we do. And Sabby has a very important documentary coming out that we highlighted on our channel recently. If you haven't seen that clip, highly recommend you check it out. Poverty is real. I've lived through it for several years. It's not fun. So keep in mind how rough things are economically right now. And that's the great distraction that's been thrown at us. Marvin Vargas with the $2. Please check out Jim Traficante, Congressman, Ohio. Oh, Jim Traficante died. Interesting. Jim Traficant. Yes. I remember him. Yeah. He had one of the worst hair pieces I ever seen in my life, but he was one of the most vocal people ever when it came to the state of Israel. He was a real force. to say the least. And so, to Kenman, always a pleasure, and thank you again for the $6.99 Canadian A. This video is from Tel Aviv. I thought it was Los Angeles, where the a-holes proliferate and befriend celebs. Well, here's what I can pontificate is probably an accurate statement. A lot of those people that you see on the streets of Beverly Hills, probably the same people you would see on the streets of Tel Aviv. So it's not a stretch. Fair assessment, I would say. Marvin Vargas, again with the $2. 3 generations, Herzl youth. Germany had, well, it was the Hitler youth. But yes, point well taken. Kenman again with the $6.99 Canadian A. Message to Israelis. God may love you. Everyone else thinks you're a bunch of a-holes. I kind of get what you're doing there. And I can't complain. Heshem Sabek, thank you very much for the $1.99. Rachel Mellon A, thank you for the $2.79 Canadian A. John Hanley, thank you for the $1.99 super sticker. You guys have been great. And can't thank you enough for your amazing support. Now, I know why a lot of you came here this evening. I don't agree with it at all, Moed. I think it was actually very poor on their part. I mean, listen, Matt and Trey have to walk a very fine line through Comedy Central, obviously through Viacom. And I think it's, I could be wrong. I don't even know if it's Viacom anymore. I forget who owns Comedy Central, but it isn't necessarily whether they want to take it down. It's a question of whether or not they were advised to take it down and told that if you don't take it down, there's going to be repercussions. And so that was their decision. I do believe that that is something that probably happened, but I don't even think their episode where they went after, I mean, listen, I went after Charlie Kirk because I thought he was a fool for thinking that they weren't making fun of him. They were. He could laugh at it. How about hustling up a bit, eh? You hoser? Yes, Canadians say A. Maybe it's a province thing, I don't know. Kenman, let me know what province you're in, because I think this is probably more common in the East than it is in the West. But yes, I think Lindsay hit it right on the head, and we want to know, is he an Israel shill? I'm going to let you all be the judge. Now, let me preface this with, we have been very clear about how we feel about Nick Fuentes. And I would agree with Austin. I do not believe he's an Israel supporter. I'm not going to go there. That I don't believe. I believe he genuinely is concerned about what has happened to the Palestinian children in particular. I think he tries to be contrarian. That's his MO. It's what's made him a lot of money. It's what has given him an amazingly large platform. But do I think that all of a sudden, in lieu of what happened to Charlie, and clearly the rivalry that he and him had obviously had, do I believe that he all of a sudden now is succumbing to the pressure and is just giving in to the state of Israel? No, I'm not going to go there. But I also believe that he was given a talking to, and that somebody may have made a suggestion, and he's deeply concerned about it. And so here's what Nick had to say. Keep in mind, he's doing this interview with grifter extraordinaire Russell Brand. I'll address Russell in a minute.
Well, I have to say that there's always a temptation because the crowd goes one way.
Can we just say Russell with the shirt off doing the live stream? Dude, come on. So before we get into this, I'm just going to point out that I met Russell Brand in a seaside town in the Florida Panhandle several months ago. He was there with his daughter. He was actually trying to be somewhat incognito. He and I talked for a minute. He's pretty tall. He's about 6'3", I would say. There was clearly something off, almost as if he didn't want to say too much. And this is around the time where his narrative was changing significantly. We found out that Russell was clearly under the thumb of the Israel lobby. Russell was a wild man for a very long time, doing a lot of drugs, having a lot of sex, perhaps with people he shouldn't have been involved with. He got his mind right, became a born-again Christian Zionist. That's what I wanted you to know. All those things I said for over the years, I don't really mean it anymore. Now Nick Fuentes is talking to him? It's a bad look, Nick. Right off the bat. Not a good look.
And always based on instinct, always based on emotion. And even in my case, it wasn't even so much against the left. With my audience, they wanted to rush and blame Israel. That was the first gut reaction of my audience. And in this case, I said, I'm certainly not reluctant to blame Israel for one thing or another if there's evidence. I mean, based on who I am, I said, but you know, he was a pro-Israel guy. So, I mean, that would be like saying if Ben Shapiro got taken out, God forbid, and people said Israel did it. I don't, that would be pretty far-fetched, you know?
What's far-fetched about it? I don't get it. Why would it be far-fetched? You, of all people, have been screaming from the rooftops that Charlie Kirk was a cuck for Israel. But as has been displayed over the past week, it is painfully clear that Charlie was backing off of Israel in a big financial way. Why would you do that, Nick? Why would you immediately suggest that Israel wasn't involved? Have you seen what Milikowski's been up to? Have you seen how he is going on TV and constantly trying to prove that he had nothing to do with this? Maybe you should talk about that part of it. That's probably important.
But that was kind of the rush to judgment on our side was it's the same suspect. It's always the same culprit. And I guess for me, it always just goes back to you have to tell the truth. You know, I think that a lot of people, and that seems obvious, but what a lot of people find themselves doing when they talk about these things is they want to satisfy an emotional craving, an emotional state. And
there isn't anything emotional about trying to figure out why somebody of the prominence of Charlie Kirk, who is followed around with Secret Service detail, could get assassinated at a public event where everyone had to be screened. The perimeters had to be checked. Metal detectors, I have no doubt. He was wearing a bulletproof vest. The only people capable of assassinating a public figure like that in that setting are professionals. You think the kid that they dragged out and saying that he's the guilty party, you think that that's a professional? Have you heard about how much money his family has been given to throw him under the bus? I'm sorry, man. Of all the people who I would think would probably question exactly what's going on right now, it'd be you. But it sounds like you're just making an excuse to not look at what the evidence is directing us towards, because the evidence is suggesting very strongly that whatever we've been told is not the truth. But you are talking to Russell Brand, so immediately I am suspicious of your intentions.
You really need to be careful. Am I telling the truth? Am I being objective? Am I looking at the facts? Or am I saying these things to satisfy something that I'm feeling right now? Because I think that's what a lot of people are doing. Another thing that they do is they tend to fall back on this kind of heuristic level thinking, or like a rule way of thinking, where they say something bad happens. Oh, well, Israel is implicated when bad things happen. Or, a right-wing person got shot. It came from the left. We have to get away from that kind of heuristic-based thinking and think more in terms of maybe zoom out and get a broader sense of perspective. And I think in terms of second and third order effects.
Yes, that's exactly what we're doing. And what the facts are telling us is that the shot almost assuredly did not come from where it came from. And these types of assassinations, where it's one shot, again, who gets one shot and gets it right? Perfectly right. An assassin, a hired assassin. A lone gun nut? No, that's not how it works. Not at this level. Without any hesitation. And what's also been discussed, which I also think is important here to remember, you're not just talking about assassinating anybody. You're talking about assassinating somebody who is of exceptional prominence in the conservative youth movement, is a real well-known figure. This is a pretty famous individual, if you will. Unless this person has shot and killed other people before, I think you're really going down a very dark road to suggest that this is an open and shut case, that this 20-year-old did the job, and no one else had an axe to grind, even though all the evidence is suggesting otherwise. Why would Nick do this? My guess is that he's concerned, that he got the message, and that he's looking out for his own well-being, if you catch my drift. Maybe he got a call, maybe he got a message. I want to think about what direction you plan on taking the conversation regarding Charlie Kirk's demise, just in case. So, what happened? I don't know. But I'm suspicious. This doesn't jive with how Nick has been talking. It's a new path. Coming out right and saying that Israel had nothing to do with this, something's not adding up.
Have to be a little bit smarter than just kind of like our first gut reaction. It's like we just said a moment ago, yes, everybody's first impulse is people are making us unhappy, punish them. People are saying these things, we got to go after them. We have to think, though, what is the knock-on effect? What's the chain reaction? Okay, we punish these people. What do they do next? What do they do in a year? What do they do in 2 years? What does the government take away from this? What could be justified down the road? We always have to be a little bit smarter than we want to be in a moment like that. But that takes some patience. It takes time.
The absurdity of Russell Brand sitting there without a shirt. Listen, Russ, I met your brother. You're in good shape. I'm not going to say that you're not, but I could take off my shirt. I've taken good care of my body. There's a level of vanity that comes with that shit. It's so, I'm not going to do it, Jen. What, there's something very weird here. I would never have accused Russ of being a normal guy. I don't think anybody would. But it's very gratuitous. Extremely gratuitous as far as I'm concerned.
Time to develop that sense.
Well, Nick, you are now slowly but surely proving that maybe even you can be had. As soon as the assassination took place, it was only two narratives, and only two. One narrative was meant for the right side of politics, which is that this was a trans lover who thought that Charlie was wrong for his trans views. And the other was the left's view, which is this guy was a groyper who loved Nick Fuentes, and that's why he killed Charlie Kirk. Well, there you go. As I said, we're not even going to mention who the alleged assassin is, because in the end, we just call him Patsy. What else is there to call him? I don't know if the stories will evolve or get worse, but I do know that Fuentes, since the assassination, has changed his tune in a not so insignificant way. Can't deny it, guys. It's pretty clear. I also didn't hear Nick say anything about the Palestinian people. Maybe I missed it. Maybe it's still out there. Maybe he has said it since then. But you also, as we said at the top, you're still not getting it, dickwad. I don't give a fuck if it was an easy shot. This was done with Secret Service all over the place. No one is getting into position to fire that shot. I don't care if it's 144 yards. I don't care if it's 200. I don't care if it's 20 feet. No one is getting away with that when Secret Service are at an event. You cannot get there. I've been to Secret Service events, including RFK's announcement in Philadelphia right after October 7th in 2023. You know how you get in there? You know how you get within any inch of getting to RFK? You have to go through a metal detector. You have to be screened. And anybody in any of the surrounding buildings, there was Secret Service everywhere. So I don't want to hear this bullshit about this shot could be done. I'm sure it could. I'm not denying that. Once again, you are asking us to believe that this kid pulled this off all by himself, despite all the evidence of what was going on in the crowd, despite the evidence of what was going on with the Secret Service. Why weren't agents on the roofs? You know, the same thing was talked about when JFK was assassinated. You would have felt an army presence in the streets. And to those of you in the chat, you ladies, Maurice, Casey, say whatever the fuck you want about me. I don't care. I am always going to go down the rabbit hole. I am not trying to foster the support for Nick Fuentes or Charlie Kirk. I just understand how power works. That's what I understand. I understand how money works. And I understand how power works. Whether it's from my line of work, whether it's from the podcast, I am telling you, it isn't about them as people. It's about what they can do for the people with power. And they can do a lot. They can sheep herd them. They could get them to give money. They could get them to shut up. They could get them to go along with the narrative. But if they decide that they're not going along with it anymore, oh boy, you need only look. It's pretty clear. They want to get rid of somebody, they could do it. And yes, I'm feeling a little ragey tonight. I love my audience. We love our audience, but we'll fight with our audience too. We're not just going to tell you that you're right, and if we disagree with you, we disagree with you. As I said, we're not here to celebrate Charlie. We're not here to celebrate Nick. We're just here to give you the truth. The truth is, they have a lot of influence and a lot of power. Some people are going to get in line, and others are not. But like I said, the biggest difference Maurice, Israel is losing control of their stranglehold over our country. It may not feel like it right now, not in this moment, but it's changing. It's happening. And that's why everything around us is happening. So don't be surprised. That's why this is a big deal. Charlie Kirk is assassinated, and Nick Fuentes, of all people, who probably went after Charlie Kirk harder than anybody, is now changing his tune. That's not a mistake. No lone gunman is going to do such a thing to make somebody like Nick Fuentes change his mind. He already had an assassin come to his house and try to kill him. He clearly is dealing with a much higher stacked deck against him that are now coming out to let him know what the score is. And he's playing ball. At least for now he is. Brad League with the $5 super sticker. Appreciate you, brother. Thank you very much. Laug66 with the £5. I'm not convinced he's even really dead. Well, I'm not going there. I don't think somebody like Charlie Kirk is the type of person they're just going to put in a box, wheel out, and send him off to a private island when he's got a wife and 2 young kids. Even if he just had a wife, maybe, but not those 2 kids. I'm not buying it. Epstein, on the other hand, well, that's another story. Kenman with the 279. Russell Brand managed to score with Katy Perry. Yes, he did. Russell Brand managed to score with a lot of babes. He's not just a handsome guy with a good body. He's also got a shtick. He's got money. He's got influence. He does the yoga Pilates thing. He's a smart cat. I get his charm. I could see why ladies dig him. It's not hard to see why. But he's full of vanity, and he's a grifter. You got to call the spade a spade. Can't be in denial of that reality. Kenman with the 279 contribution. Thank you very much. And one more time. Is Peter angry, or is this his Cenk impression? No, I don't blow a gasket the way Cenk does, and I think Cenk also does it for effect. I do all this to say, I know you all thought I was going to do a segment on Jimmy Kimmel. Corporate media is dead. It should stay dead. And if you are in any way concerned about what Jimmy Kimmel has to say, considering all the things that he's done over the years, considering how many people's lives he personally ruined, particularly during the pandemic, I have no sympathy. In fact, of all the people that are on late night TV, between Colbert, Fallon, who else is there? I don't care. Seth Meyers. Of all the people I would have kicked in the nuts and tossed out the back and said, have a nice fucking life, Jimmy Kimmel was the first one that I would have done that to. He's the worst. He has no talent. Jimmy Fallon has talent. He's great at voices, improvisation, physical humor. Stephen Colbert, The Colbert Report was a fantastic show. He played a great character and was very funny. What the fuck is Jimmy Kimmel? He really is the definition of a no-talent hack who did everything he was told to do to stay in power. And you're fawning over him? The guy who reads corporate ads 24/7, who never said a fucking word about Palestine for 2 fucking years when he got confronted by one of the people? Remember when we did that clip not too long ago about the guy who showed up with Jerry Seinfeld and said, hey, free Palestine. I don't care about Palestine. Well, somebody else did the same thing to Jimmy Fallon. Do you remember what happened when that happened? He said, free Palestine? As if to say, how dare you bring that to my attention? Did you notice all of the Democratic lawmakers going on TV and talking about how it's the end of free speech because Jimmy Fallon was getting the can? Jimmy Fallon's show has lied to the American public about countless critical issues forever. And on top of everything else, the show doesn't produce any profit. It's a loser. So I don't know about you, but when Jimmy is doing NPR or is doing real news like journalism on the ground, that should be subsidized, not whatever the fuck it is that he's doing. You just don't like it because Trump is the one who did the job. Were you saying the same thing when Tucker Carlson was kicked off of Fox News? And why was Tucker kicked off of Fox News? Because he was talking about Palestine. That's why he got kicked out. Did you feel the same way about that? Probably not. Cooper, I will only give Kimmel a slightly higher mark than James Corden because James Corden is a bona fide cocksucker of the highest order. The worst people, especially celebrities, are ones that treat service workers poorly. They are the worst humans. And James Corden was one of the absolute worst. He's right up there with Ellen DeGeneres in terms of the worst people that treat the help in their mind. The absolute worst. I don't know of those specific stories with Jimmy Kimmel. So I would say no. I love Conan O'Brien. I love Jon Stewart. And I don't particularly care for all the segments and things that Jon Stewart does at times. But I know John's a good guy. And I know he cares. And he is willing to talk about Palestine in a way that very few others are willing to do. So kudos to him. Jimmy Kimmel had it coming. It's just unfortunate that it had to be Trump who had to do it. So people had to find a reason to say he didn't deserve it. Not even close. If you don't know the stories about James Corden, guys, look them up. You're going to be very upset. Moordog, thank you very much for the $4.99. Is it odd he confessed his guts out to his parents, pastor, Discord, allegedly, and yet now he's tight-lipped? I'm not sure who you're referring to. If you're referring to Russell Brand, are you referring to Nick Fuentes? I'm not sure. But like I said, for a lot of people, they get their mind right. That's what the saying is. Oh, the Patsy. No. Again, I think that there is something to be said for the prominence and the possibility of MK Ultra. I think all those things are possible. So let's not deny those realities. They're there to be had. So I'll say in conclusion, as I said at the top, there's a lot of different stories that we can talk about. There's a lot of different issues that bother me. Casey, just accept the fact that you're never going to like me. I like the fact that you like Jen. And whether you believe it or not, I appreciate you being here. And I appreciate the banter and I appreciate the pushback. Our goal is not to have a channel where everybody agrees with each other. That's not the goal. I love you too, Casey. King, I know you like to mix shit up here, but fuck Ellen DeGeneres and the fucking horse she rode in on. And no, I'm not talking about Portia de Rossi. She is a sleazebag of the worst kind, and she's not funny, and she's a hack. I don't have the energy to get into her now. All I can say is smash that like button, share, subscribe, do all those things we ask you to do, because we do appreciate you. And as Charlie would suggest, brace yourselves, because things are only going to get that much more interesting. We love you all. We'll see you Monday. Free Palestine. Good night, guys.